What's up, y'all? Shuffle. This is the Jester guide. We are finally doing it. I'm actually redoing literally the entire thing because I just wasn't happy with it. And also, I feel like I can do a better job being a little more concise in what I'm saying, and I'm trying to keep these guides a little bit shorter. This isn't just for the viewers, because sometimes they like the long videos, some don't. You know, it really depends who you talk to. But also, for me personally, this will really cut down on the time in editing, which is usually the thing that bogs down these videos. So normally it takes me maybe a day or two to record everything for the videos, and then like editing could take 20 to 40 hours or something like that on these. So we're trying to be a little more concise for my own sanity and my workload, but we're always going to cover the stuff that you're expecting. So the strengths, weaknesses, talk about the skills a little bit, the quirks, what roles these characters fill, and some teams for them. We're also going to change it up, and I'm going to ask you to like, comment, subscribe, all that nonsense. Join Discord if you enjoy this stuff. I'm going to ask you at the start of the video instead of at the end, and see if that really does anything, because I am a person of science, and we're just trying stuff out. Who knows? Alright, so let's actually get started. I used to say that sarcastically, but also it makes it easier now because I'm saying it halfway seriously. It makes it easier to get yourself in the mindset of actually doing video game content. I feel like I have some good energy right now, but we'll see if this energy persists throughout the video. Who knows? Probably after an hour and a half of talking, in between takes and cuts and stuff like that, I'll get tired. To start, the strengths of the Jester. Finale. Yes, I have some weird opinions on this move. Maybe they're not weird, but we'll talk about Finale specifically later. Finale, very good move for burst damage. Also, really good at getting the Jester back into the back of the party in case something happens. Either you move yourself up there, you get surprised, or an enemy decides to pull you, or an enemy decides to push one of your friends behind you. Finale, very good move. Stress healing. The Jester is the best single target stress healer in the game. Inspiring Tune is very straightforward, no nuance, easy to understand. You press it, you get stress taken off your stress bar, and you get a small buff to help you resist further stress damage. Very good move. This is usually why people take the Jester. However, I will say the next strength, Battle Ballad, that is why I take the Jester. I think that's why other people do take him as well. It's usually the combination of this and stress healing, but Battle Ballad is in fact the best Jester button, and I will talk about that later as well. Bleed damage. This helps the Jester synergize with any heavy bleed teams. There's a really good synergy between Flagellant and Jester. Not only does Flagellant reduce bleed resist through debuffs, the Flagellant also has Endure, which is a pretty solid stress heal at the cost of giving the Flagellant a little bit of that stress, but then the Jester, who can give you Inspiring Tune to also lower large amounts of stress and give you a little stress buff, or stress resist buff, can start bombing the Flagellants with Inspiring Tune as he's hitting Endure, which gives you a lot of raw stress healing output, with no caveats like the Houndmaster, where it's a percentage chance and he needs a special position in the party, even though the Jester does have to be in the back for Inspiring Tune, but you get what I'm saying, right? The Jester is pretty move resistant. He has moves that get him up forward, so he's got Dirk Stab and Solo. Those put him up forward. You know, Solo puts him up to the front of the party. I tap my desk in case that gets picked up on the audio, and Dirk Stab moves him up one space, and you can always just spam Dirk Stab, go past guard, all that cool stuff. And then he has Finale to move him back. You only get to use Finale once, so his dancing is kind of limited to going forward, but there are some applicable situations, and having movement resist, or at least dancing abilities, is better than not having them. As we've discussed in other videos with like the Leper, for instance, because he can't move himself or do really anything once he gets to the back, it really hampers his effectiveness. So the Jester being able to move is a good thing. Jester has some solid dodge. Really aren't going to be dodge tanking much, but in case you hit Solo and you have like Wilbur's Flag or Ancestor's Code and stuff like that, it helps. It's better than not having it. It is his primary defense, so it's a little touchy, but it's better than having literally nothing. Weaknesses. Finale. Wait a minute, Shuffle. How is this a strength and a weakness? Finale is weird. So that's why we're going to talk about it later, but Finale feels like a bit of a trap just because you have to take a while to charge it up, and then you only get to fire it once, and then when you use it really matters, and then if it crits or not really matters. So like I said, we'll talk about that later. But otherwise, the Jester has low hit points, no actual defensive mechanics, so he doesn't have Shadow Fade, he doesn't have block, he doesn't have stuns. He literally is dependent on the rest of the team to keep him safe, and hopefully his ability to dodge. You can get him up to like 50 dodge pretty easily without buffs. You know, you just slap an Ancestor's Code on him, he's at 50. You give him a bolster, he's looking really good. But otherwise, you have no defensive mechanics, which does kind of suck. The best defense for the Jester is actually where you position him in the party. So if you're trying to dodge stress, might want to put him up front a little bit. If you're trying to dodge direct damage, trying to put him in the back. So just those little things, but I don't know. It would be nice if he had a stun or some kind of, you know, massive giant dodge boost besides, I think, Solo? Yeah, I had to go back and make sure that Solo did in fact give dodge. I didn't want to give you some false information in the first 5 minutes, so yes, Solo, okay. The next Jester weakness is the bleed abilities hit really awkward ranks. They are mid-cleave, or not mid-cleave, but they're like mid-range attacks. They hit ranks 2 and 3 specifically. I'd like it if Slice Off hit 1, but it doesn't, which means that the Jester's targeting in battle is pretty weird. I guess it's okay because that way he doesn't have the incentive to just spam damage abilities all game. He can spend a couple turns using support and defensive abilities, or I should say recovery. So that's something, I don't know. It's weird. I don't like the way the bleeds work. Next up, we're going to talk about the Jester's skills. We're going to start with the camp ones. Turn back time is pretty good. Obviously, if they're afflicted, then this isn't worth using. It's just a worse than courage. But this is still pretty okay. I do find myself not hitting this that often. However, if you have 3 points floating around and you just want a giant single target stress heal, pretty good. Every rose has its thorn, however. This thing is fantastic. This is so efficient in terms of point cost and effect. So where it says all companions receive this, that means that the Jester himself does not get this. But minus 15 stress doesn't seem like a ton, right? Their camp skills, obviously, they get more. But 15 stress is still respectable. And then the minus 15% stress for 4 battles going forward, that is huge. That can save you upwards of, I don't know if I wanted to do the math, that could save you upwards of like 50 to 100 stress across your whole party, across 4 battles. That's really good. You know, would you take a camp skill for 3 points that prevents 100 stress? I would. So, really good. This is probably one of the ones you will be hitting if you have 3 points and you're camping with Jester. Tiger's Eye, this is just saving you 1 charge of Battle Ballad. So someone like the Leper, as you see in our, I guess, default party here, or footage background, B-roll footage party. Tiger's Eye, pretty good. It's like Battle Ballad without the speed, and you get 4 battles of it, so it's nice. I do find myself hitting this if I have a dedicated, like, damage dealer in the party. So if I'm running with Leper, I think Jester and Leper, spoilers, are one of the best duos, surprisingly, even though Leper isn't a great character. But being able to give someone an extra 10 accuracy is really helpful. And then 8% crit. It's not melee crit, it's not range crit, it's just crit. That is fantastic. So Tiger's Eye, probably the button you hit most often when you camp with Jester. I'm going to scroll over here. Mockery. I don't use this that often. It's good. You're effectively netting 20 stress by taking 20 off 2 people, so that's 40, and then someone else gets plus 20 stress, so it's effective stress healing of 20. However, something of note is if you use something like Every Rose Has Its Thorn, which lowers the stress coming into that character, you can use this first and then use Mockery to reduce the stress inflicted by Mockery. So if you have camp skills that inflict stress on people for other benefits, there are quite a few of those, make sure that you hit this first, or Pep Talk if you have those available. And if you're going to end up using this, and I think sequencing camp skills is one of the harder things to do. It seems easy at first, but you know, for as much as I've played Darkest Dungeon, I still make that mistake. I go, oh, I should have hit this first, and then I hit something else instead. Talking about combat skills next, Dirk Stab is okay. It moves you forward 1 space, the accuracy is average, it has a huge crit modifier, it buffs Finale, but everything the Jester does buffs Finale besides Finale itself. And the other important point is this bypasses guard. I actually don't think it's that good of an attack to kill a guarded target, because there's so many stuns in the game that are readily available to you, and those are usually better at stunning the frontline enemy, taking their next turn, and then you get a free hit on the guarded target, and then there's damage over time effects. There are just so many things that I could do, like a cleave, impale, You know, just so many things that I would rather do to kill a guarded target or to disrupt the enemy than use Jester's Dirk Stab for 10 damage. So it's good for the movement, okay for the bypass guard, but usually you're using this to move more than snipe targets. Harvest and Slice Off we're going to talk about together, and they're both bleed attacks that hit the same targets, so the middle two, so rank 2 and 3, as you can see here. And they almost do the same thing, they're very similar, where Harvest hits 2 targets for a lower amount. It also has a lower bleed, but it has the benefit of hitting 2 targets, whereas Slice Off hits 1 target for a slightly higher average on hit damage, in terms of, like, you know, the damage mod being 33%, but it has a huge crit modifier in plus 12%, which is really good. So in case you don't know, if you get a critical hit, the chance to apply secondary effects, so in this case bleed, goes up by 20%. So you see here, it says bleed 140% base. If you get a crit, it goes up to 160 base before the enemy's resist is applied to it. So it's really good at the single target aspect, and Harvest is better at the group attack aspect. Sometimes you do want to hit 2 targets, but it really depends what you're doing to determine which one you're taking. So if you are going to fight a boss that can be hit by bleed, usually you want to take Slice Off because it's a high single target thing, and if the Jester can reach them, then it's really good. I'm not going to spoil on which bosses this is effective against, but they do exist. Harvest is better for any non-boss mission usually, because you just go through, you do your hallway fights, your room fights. It's usually 3 or 4 enemies every single time, which means there are usually middle rank targets to hit, or sometimes they have a big beefy frontliner like the Unclean Giant, but you know, he takes 1 and 2 in terms of the enemy ranks, and then you have like 3 and 4 for other stuff. So Harvest usually gets a lot of value, and it's actually okay to run Harvest all the way up to the boss door and then switch to Slice Off, but I don't recommend running both together because they're too similar, and it's better to just have other Jester buttons that are enabled than both bleeds. Which one is good depends on what you're doing, and I hope that that somewhat lengthy explanation suffices. I'm going to talk about Finale last. We're going to move to Solo. This is really just used to get you to the front so that you can use Finale the next turn. You know, you just run all the way up to the forward spot. This I don't use that often. I would rather use Dirk Stab or have someone else move behind me or something like that. That doesn't mean that Solo isn't good. It's more that it's a kind of low tempo move. Go figure, you know, Solo, Jesters, musicians, stuff like that. We're talking about tempo, but it'll definitely get the job done, and hopefully the Jester can dodge a couple attacks by marking himself. That's really the basis for it. It also gives you the biggest bonus in terms of setting up Finale, so there is that. You get to use it twice a battle, but normally when you use it once, you're finaleing after, so it's like, why do I use it twice? There are some cheeky team comps out there, so you could run like Highwayman and Crusader, for instance, and then when you solo the first time, you're probably going to be faster than Highwayman, who uses Duelist Advance, and then Crusader uses Holy Lance, and all of a sudden Jester's back in rank 3, and then Jester solos a second time. That is doable. More trouble than it's worth in my experience, but you can do stuff like that. Otherwise, Finale or Solo is okay. Battle Ballad, this is the best Jester button, in my opinion. Inspiring Tune's pretty good, but this does so much for you. And I did this video before, and I ended up talking about Battle Ballad for like 10 minutes, so I'm trying not to do that this time. But the short end of it is, it gives you a pretty solid Finale buff. It gives everyone in the party, including the Jester. It says buff target, but it should say buff party. It gives everyone a huge boost of speed, like +4 speed. Will put even Leper like in contention with some of the fastest enemies. You hit this twice, Leper is going before the enemy team, which is crazy to think about. But otherwise you have huge speed bonus, huge accuracy bonus, and huge crit bonus. So the reason these are really good is because getting to act first in battle means you can prevent everything else from happening to you. So if your team is going first with their high speed and they're hitting harder and they're hitting consistently because of all the accuracy and crit buffs, The crits are reducing your stress because every time you crit, you lose stress, and it can affect other people in the party. You're just doing massive damage. You're getting rid of targets that can hurt you quickly. And then you have accuracy, which means you're hitting them consistently. And this is just such a good combination of stuff to have. This is probably the best ability in the game. Like, I would almost bet money on it at this point. And there are a couple that are probably in contention. You know, like Impale's disgusting. And there are a few others, obviously, that are really good. But otherwise, this just does so much for your party. This is like the best support ability. And it can prevent a lot of harm. So we talk about harm prevention right now. And it can prevent a lot of harm coming into your party. And it can help them recover by giving them stress relief through criticals. And enabling all of your characters' individual crit bonuses, which do exist. This just does so much. This should be on every Jester build. And I will probably pitch one in a team idea that doesn't have it. But I'm just giving you options. It's not that I'm saying that you shouldn't take this. I think this should be on every Jester build at all times. I got through that kind of quick in terms of how I did it last time, so I'm actually a little happy with myself. Inspiring Tune, this is the main reason people bring Jester, especially newer players. They just go, oh, this lowers stress, and it prevents stress. I just press it, and it's easy to use, it's easy to understand, and that's fantastic. So we do like Inspiring Tune. The best spot, I think, for Jester is rank 3. Go figure, Battle Ballad is also rank 3, so normally your support Jester loadout has both of these. And you could argue the case that every Jester loadout should have both of these, unless you have 2 Jesters or something cheeky like that. But otherwise, pretty effective. Press it, lower stress, prevent stress, buff Finale, awesome stuff. Alright, Finale's the other thing that took a long time to talk about the first time I did this. Finale is complicated. You get to use it one time. It has the potential to do an absolute ton of damage. Like, you can buff this up and get some debuffs on the enemy, or have melee trinkets and stuff like that, melee damage trinkets, and this can break triple digits with a crit pretty reliably. And you see that and you go, man, why can't I just do this every single time? This is amazing. The problem with Finale is it's very hard to set up in hallway and room battles, because the average hallway or room battle goes for about 4 turns. You know, unless you're stalling or unless you get a couple crits, it's usually about 4 turns. So having something that is best when it builds up for 8 turns seems lackluster. Also, if Finale crits and it overkills by like 30 damage, it feels like a waste. If you want Finale to crit, you know, you have like 57% crit chance or something, you have all your buffs going, and you go, okay, I want this to crit for like 45 and just end this dude. And then it doesn't, and it hits for like 19. At that point, it feels like a waste, because it didn't do what it's supposed to, and then you have to spend extra time killing a target that you were hoping would die to this. So Finale is just odd. It almost never misses. It's statistically possible to miss if you have like enough accuracy changes on both the Jester and the target, but otherwise it's usually going to hit. It's going to hit very hard, and it debuffs the Jester for, I think, 3 turns after that. I don't think this is one you can use medicinal herbs to get rid of, so you're stuck with the minus dodge, the minus speed, and the bonus to stress damage. The other difficult part about Finale is it moves the Jester back 3 spaces and not 2. Because it moves him back 3 spaces, he goes to rank 4, which means he is locked out of things like Harvest and Slice Off going forward. So, like, Dirk Stab's usually the way to recover out of that, but if you want to use Jester to bleed the next turn, you have to have some way to get him back into rank 3 without him moving himself. He certainly can just move himself, but it's not ideal. And if you have a Vestal, she's not going to be able to move Jester. So having that other caveat to Finale makes it a little less appealing to me. But don't let all of my discussion on the negatives talk you out of using this. Finale does have a couple of really good spots for it to shine in, and I don't remember what I did with it, but I had this clip of Finale, no joke, taking a Shambler down from like half HP. You know, it got a huge crit after 8 turns, but it did the job, and it was actually pretty funny. So Finale is still good, it's just clunky, and all of the after effects are definitely not good. So I guess the way to play Finale is to either, if you're in the hallway or room battle, it's spend like 1 or 2 turns, use like Battle Ballad, then Inspiring Tune, and then Dirk Stab, and then Finale, and try and clean up the last kill. That's probably the consistent way to use it outside of a boss mission. Otherwise, on bosses, definitely charge it up for 8 turns and then just fire it. Try and, snipe something for massive damage, or pick off an ad if the boss is summoning that kind of stuff. Otherwise, it's still a net bonus in boss fights just because it can do a lot of damage. And if the enemy has a larger HP pool and you don't get the crit, it's still okay, because if you hit something for like 40 non-crit or whatever it is, you're still happy. That's still 40 damage you don't have to do later. And if it crits for, 100, then awesome. For Jester quirks, these are pretty universal in my experience. I usually focus on speed or defense, usually both. The reason being, if Jester can go first, he can get Battle Ballad down immediately, which means he doesn't have to wonder if Highwayman's gonna, high roll his speed check and go first, or Bounty Hunter. This means that Jester is consistently going first to buff everyone. That's what you want your support to do. You want your support to be able to establish themselves before everyone else goes. Otherwise, I look for defense quirks. The reason being, with defensive quirks like steady, tough, hard skin, unyielding, all that stuff, the longer your party can go without having to worry about Jester dying, are more turns they get to spend dealing damage. The advantage of Battle Ballad, as we've been talking about, is the fact you get to go first, especially after like 2 shots of it, and you're always hitting hard, or harder I should say, because of the crit boost and stuff like that, which does go off pretty frequently. And having your Jester able to survive or dodge or not worry about like an extra bleed tick and stuff like that means your team can just focus on doing a little bit more damage before having to do things like guard or heal or stun, to prevent him from taking damage. So I do like having 1 or 2 defensive quirks if I can find something else to lock in speed. If you have a consistent Jester team, musical is okay, especially like a farmstead team. If you have a dedicated farmstead team, then having musical on a couple people or everyone is really nice. It just boosts inspiring tunes, healing effectiveness, never bad, and it kind of frees up a trinket slot. So if you have everyone with musical, that means that Jester doesn't have to use the bright tambourine, he can use something else instead. So if you're going the damage route, I would actually prioritize Precise Striker and potentially Deadly as the second damage quirk, just to get the extra 2% crit, because I don't think Slugger is great for bleed damage, and you're really looking for Slugger to help on finale damage by giving you an extra raw 10%, but I haven't crunched the math on it, so I'm wondering if stacking crit is more effective damage than an extra 10%, considering Jester's base damage is very low at 7 to 13. If you want to go Precise Striker, Deadly, and Slugger, and just go like Smork Hyper Aggro, then that's definitely an option. But otherwise, I think Melee Jester is pretty easy to build. Now is probably the part of the video most people come for. Maybe? I don't know, actually. I don't know how helpful the team section is in these videos to people, but I've had people talk about them, so we're going to keep doing them. The Jester teams, we're going to start off with the support archetype. And when I say support archetype, like, these first 2 characters are almost inconsequential. It could be literally anyone else, and this team has so much raw recovery between Jester and Vestal, which, sometimes I call it Gestal, that it almost doesn't matter who comes up front, because you have so much just recovery. I'm repeating myself. There's just so much recovery. I'm recovering this audio right now. It just doesn't matter how much damage you take. It doesn't matter how much stress damage you take. As long as you have enough turns and you don't get like rolled over by consecutive crits, then you can usually recover over the course of the dungeon with this team. It's really powerful. There's a reason that when you see a lot of high kill counts in Farmstead, it's usually Jester and Vestal together, just because of the consistency and the recovery potential. Jester himself is pretty flexible here in terms of trinket choices. I take the Bright Tambourine just to have extra stress healing output, and then I like a defensive trinket, so this is going again with my quirk selection. You can even see it here. I haven't found speed on this guy yet, but this is what I've been rolling. And having some kind of extra defense helps him, stay alive longer. The combination of hit points and dodge is fantastic. The minus accuracy does not matter because you have Battle Ballad. So this is a cool trinket setup. You can use pretty much anything else. This could be another support trinket instead of Overture Box, or something else instead of stress healing. The world is your oyster. Actually, what else is there? Just real quick. So if you're low level, Jester's low level trinkets are actually okay. Lucky dice are great. And then anything that's like defensive, you can give them a survival guide too, for instance. There's just a lot of options. For skills in battle, obviously Battle Ballad and Inspiring Tune. I don't have to sell you on these, I think. Dirk Stab, just because it helps fix positioning. And then you have Finale, in case you want to get some damage off. Let's start with Shield Breaker. So, Shield Breaker here, this is one of my favorite setups. The only thing it lacks is accuracy, which Jester fixes, so you don't have to run accuracy here. Shield Breaker has some pretty solid accuracy across the board, usually 110, and then the couple 105s here. And also you get Armor Pen from, where is it? Snake Eyes, there you go. So there's a lot of just direct damage potential here, plus some Blight, and then if you want to put Bleed on instead to have like the dual advantage or the dual damage over time, you can. So Pierce for reach and armor piercing to fix positioning also. Puncture, this is mostly to help Leper, and again, this is another thing that breaks guards, so we don't have to worry about stuns, we don't have to worry about Dirk Stab, like, just break guard instead. Put that squishy target up front, get them chopped by the Leper. You can also use Adder's Kiss instead of Puncture if you want like more direct damage. My phone just beeped. But I think that Leper does enough frontline damage that you don't need Adder's Kiss. Impale is one of the best skills in the game. Just absolutely nuts in terms of cleave damage, and having the ability to get some damage rolling on everyone and also the backline targets is just fantastic. And Serpent's Way to protect yourself. For trinkets, this is one of my favorite setups to run on Shieldbreaker. So we have a ton of extra HP from our Kirboili. I can't pronounce that correctly. I looked it up and I still can't do it. And then we have Spectral Spear Tip giving us some extra HP. There's just a lot of damage and a lot of survivability here. The extra Blight chance on Spear Tip, you could argue that is why you should use Adder's Kiss. But I would also say that you get a flat 15% damage, which helps Pierce. So you just cover a lot of bases. I still think this is okay, but if you want to use Adder's Kiss, this is definitely a reason to. Leper, I'm just kind of rolling right through, aren't I? Leper is the like best friend, like the BFF of Jester. I think that normally Leper is a pretty bottom tier hero. I think we all know his shortcomings, the accuracy, the position dependency, stuff like that. But the Jester fixes almost every bad thing about Leper except his positioning. And we're just going to hope that this team has like enough movement and stuff to fix it a little bit between, you know, Impale moving us back. You could even run Expose if you expect to get shoved back repeatedly or have Leper shoved back. And then we have the Battle Ballad to increase his accuracy, which fixes his main issue. And then also it just raises his crit rate through the roof, which Leper, with his massive base damage, likes crits. So anytime Leper crits, it can go up to like 60 damage pretty easily, or like maybe 45 on Hugh or something like that. So having crit and accuracy is something Leper desperately craves, which means he is best friends with Jester. They never even encroach on each other's positioning in battle. So we're going to start with Chop. You just use Chop to hit things. We like that. Hugh, this is potentially changeable just because sometimes you don't need a cleave, but you have Impale, which is the best cleave. So having two things to cleave down the enemy team is pretty helpful. This is really good in Farmstead as well, where some of the, I forget what they're called, the husks, that's it. So the husk enemies and stuff like that, they're not generally the most durable, so having the ability to just hit them really hard and hit all of them is awesome. Revenge may feel like overkill. This is not something you use in hallway battles. Revenge is mostly for boss fights or mini bosses and stuff like that. It caps out your accuracy. I did some math before I started recording, but even with 3 shots of Battle Ballad, the Leper is not hit capped on some of the most evasive enemies, so Revenge should put you over the top on like everything that's not Shrieker. The bonus damage taken is a little frightening, but you have Shield Breaker up there blocking to hopefully soak some hits as well. So this is really just a net benefit. And Leper's dodge is trash anyway, so who cares about the minus dodge? You could use Withstand if you're expecting a lot of incoming status effects, but you could also run like Fortifying Garlic or Cleansing Crystal. Solemnity, this is just in case the Leper gets into trouble. He can at least heal himself for a little bit and not die. It's pretty hard to take down Leper, unless he gets like mega focus fired. So this is more insurance than anything else. And Intimidate is interesting, but I don't think it has a place in this build. There are times to use Intimidate, but since we have Shield Breaker shoving herself back and forward repeatedly, Intimidate is inconsistent at best. Oh man, I desperately needed some water. My voice is starting to go out. I've been talking so much. But surgical gloves, they're too hype. The downsides aren't even that big a deal. You're probably like, oh, the movement resist. That's like Leper's bane. But his move resist is already pretty high base. I think 120 is among the highest. So is that 100 or 110, 80, 90? Yeah, I think Leper actually has the highest base move resist. So these don't affect him that much. And there aren't too many enemies that like to push Leper. So I think there's I think the one you have to be most afraid of is Tidal Slam. So definitely take those precautions. But otherwise, these are just good. If you get them, slot them on. But again, any other melee damage booster can help us. So Slayer Rings, lower level melee damage trinkets. Actually, let's see what there is real quick. I know there's that Warrior Brace. Where is it? Do I not have it? Huh, I guess I don't have it on this file. Yeah, there's a low level white one that has like plus 10 melee damage. Slayer Rings are good. Brawler's Gloves, not that good with Shield Breaker, but Slayer Rings, like I've been saying. Berserk Charms, okay. Any dedicated damage dealing stuff. For Leper specific trinkets, you could use a Berserk Mask, you can use Fortune Armlet, you could also use a defensive thing like Immunity Mask if you're trying not to get bled and stunned and stuff like that, because Leper's bleed resist is actual trash. So you have a lot of options here, but I definitely recommend stacking as much damage as you can on Leper, because it's going to feel great. This is one of my favorite teams to run. Do I even need to talk about Vestal? I talk about her in every single video. So just the short end, best support loadout for her. You have Judgment to heal herself. You have a okay stun that boosts Light Meter, which is always helpful. Then you have the 2 good heals. You have some kind of healing boost trinket. Salacious Diary is her best one, I think. Sacred Scroll has too many penalties. Like the minus damage and the minus stun chance actually suck pretty hard. So I don't like Sacred Scroll that much. And Junia's Head is actually probably the most usable here if I can find it. Because it has the massive, plus 20% stress, but you also have the best stress sealer in the game. So it actually kind of evens out. And then for the other trinket, I say some kind of support trinket. So Ancestors Map is obviously top tier. Otherwise, it's Survival Guide or Ancestors Lantern or just something like that. As I said before, this is one of my favorite teams to play. The reason is it has a lot of recovery potential, has a lot of damage potential. It can work in pretty much any area effectively, even the blight resistant ones, just because you're focusing mostly on direct damage and recovery in terms of your game plan. And this team can even go pretty deep in Farmstead. Playing it is really straightforward. The Jester spends probably the first 2 turns hitting Battle Ballad just to establish tempo for the rest of your team. Vestal is spending turn 1 probably stunning in most cases, unless you really need to heal from a previous fight. So she's usually stunning turn 1 and then healing as needed, but also you have so much offensive strength, I guess, that helps you run over the enemy very quickly and go first and stuff like that, that Vestal can consistently find turns to throw out Judgment and help the Shield Breaker in cleaning up backline enemies. The added benefit is also that if Vestal, I was going to say Jester, if Vestal hits a Judgment crit, then she gets a bonus on healing, which helps her next group heal or single target heal, or I guess Judgment heal, if you're just spamming that. Shield Breaker's turns are rotating between Impale and Pierce or Puncture. The times you want to hit Puncture are if there's an enemy that pretty much just becomes non-existent by getting moved. So either you push someone into rank 3 or pull someone into rank 1 or 2. There are a lot of backline enemies that once they come up to rank 1, they just have like a dagger or like some kind of crappy melee attack. Or there's some enemies that once they go into like rank 3, they have to use something like Stumble Scratch to move up and just be worthless. This also helps in the Warrens, where I talked about the Skyver Pigs in my Blood Moon guide, where having enough speed lets you go first and pull Skyver Pigs up to rank 2 so you don't have to worry about getting absolutely dumpstered by some of those attacks and they have to spend their turns, retreating, especially once you start going first. And Shieldbreaker has enough like baseline damage. Her baseline damage is pretty good, that between Impale and Pierce, she can effectively take down those backlines. You don't have to worry too much about them. Leper is really brain dead in this team. As long as he goes after Jester to get his accuracy buff, it's literally just chop. It's chop if they have a solid amount of hit points. It's hew if you think critting one of them for like 25 will clean it up. So it's really whichever seems more appealing, but you're just hitting those unless the Collector shows up, then you hit Revenge, and then you proceed to hit Chop and Hew. This next team I'm going to talk about is a bleed setup. It has the same recovery ability of the Gestal combo that we have in our backline, but it trades direct damage for bleed damage. The first skills for Jester, we have the two support ones for the same reasons as before. They're just really good. Finale can fix positioning. This is mostly in case you get pulled or surprised. Otherwise, you don't have a way to move up reliably. And then we have Harvest. Unless we get to a boss door, then it is going to be Slice Off. The reason is we just want as much bleed damage on as many people as we can at all times. For trinkets, we're going to look at a lower level setup. There are obviously stronger variants of this, like the Ancestor's Pen or whatever else is out there. I'm too lazy to think about right offhand, but we have a couple green trinkets here. Bleed Amulet is just amazing for any bleed character. It's just good. Bleed is a very common enemy damage over time type. Blight exists, but it's not as common, so having bleed resist is amazing. And following that jump cut, our second trinket is going to be something focused on crit chance usually, just because it helps us stick bleed just that much more effectively, but also just the extra damage is nice, and the potential stress recovery. So this could be the critical dice, just because I wanted to show off a Jester trinket, but also this could be surgical gloves or Ancestor's Pen, which I don't think is as good on this build as like a dedicated melee build, but it works. Otherwise, anything that gives you crit is usually preferable. This could also be a defensive trinket if you just want to rely on the Bleed Amulet doing your heavy lifting. So this could be some kind of dodge trinket or Bright Tambourine to support. There's just a lot of options here. Flagellant here is going to focus on as much bleed damage as he can possibly squeeze out. You could run Endure over one of these skills. Probably, I don't even want to say Exsanguinate, maybe Redeem, but it's kind of hard to give up such a good spot heal like that. Anyway, your goal is to hit Rain of Sorrows the first couple times, then start hitting Punish once the backline's gone, and hit Exsanguinate as you get low HP. The Bleed Amulet helps you stick bleeds, as well as the bleed resist debuffs that the Flagellant likes to stack, so all of this kind of compounds. And you can do a lot of things with your second trinket, which I guess has been the name of this team so far. But I like to use some of the thing trinkets like Mesmerizing Eye, because the Flagellant, who gets boosted at 40% HP, is exactly the cutoff for the Mesmerizing Eyes, or the thing from the star trinkets. So having one of those can usually give you something pretty cool, and having extra crit chance when you don't have to worry about your accuracy is pretty awesome. So just helps all that damage come in, helps those debuffs stick to help stick your bleeds later on. And Exsanguinate critting is like 60 damage or more. It's so good. So having just a ton of crit is amazing. So just a very high bleed damage setup here for Flagellant. Houndmaster is our other character that gets to focus on being just hyper damage. So we have the two dog attacks from rank 2. The cleave and the single target are both good for their own reasons. If you want to just bleed everything out over like 3 turns, then having Hound's Harry is just good for that. And once you have bleeds established, hitting Hound's Rush to do bonus damage because of your trinket set here is also super awesome. You don't really get a chance to mark with this team, but we're not in it for marking. We're in it for bleed damage. So that means that this team doesn't get to go to the ruins. It can go to the Cove and still bleed stuff, especially with Flagellant, but the ruins pretty much lock us out, but that's okay, since the ruins are in fact the easiest area. Lick wounds just in case, because there's really not much else you'd use here except maybe guard dog. Like, guard dog is the only other thing you'd substitute out instead of lick wounds, which you could do. They're probably about equal to me. And we get a chance to use blackjack. So we don't have a lot of stuns on this team. We have 2 stuns, but they're not like great stuns. They're not blinding gas, they're not yop, they're not flashbang, which can also shuffle, which is awesome. We have just 2 very solid direct stun attacks, and then one of them is also on Vestal. So really, we only have access to 1 consistent stun. That means that this team can be changed around. Like, you could put Bounty Hunter instead of Houndmaster here, because Bounty Hunter has a couple stuns, and then he has Bleed with Caltrops, and he can do his own stuff and some direct damage. But normally when you run damage over time, you like to have stuns because that helps the dots tick for longer. Or I shouldn't say longer, but it helps them not attack and kill you while you're killing them. And then you get to use those turns where they're stunned to spam recovery. So we don't really have that here, but we do have the still good and amazing solid recovery of just the Gestal duo. But having an extra stun is very helpful. So there will be a lot of times that Blackjack does get pressed in this comp. For trinkets, I like to use the Crimson Quartz set just because it's really good, and trinket sets are pretty fun, in my opinion. It's just cool to put on 2 things and get a set bonus. Maybe it's that D2 nostalgia. You could run a stun trinket, but Blackjack has a higher than average stun chance, so you don't really need one, which means we can get away with using the Crimson Quartz set, which gives us a ton of scouting. Our base scouting goes up to 50 before we do anything else, which is awesome. And the minus surprise chance is just good. And we also have the increased accuracy. The Lawman's badge is actually kind of crappy on this team. This setup. The reason being, we don't need the range accuracy at all. So if you don't have the whole set, don't use this, right? Because we don't need the range accuracy. We're not too concerned about the healing skills. The stun and debuff resist do kind of suck, especially the debuff resist, but in rank 2, there aren't too many things we're looking at that'll stun us besides maybe Tidal Slam. I'm sure there's one other I can't think of right offhand, but we want this for the set bonus. The extra 25% damage versus bleeding and 5% crit is pretty hefty. So this kind of fixes all of Houndmaster's normally garbage backline damage. He goes up to like 8 to 15, I think, with the effect going, and then he's sticking bleeds on top of it, so his effective damage goes up by, I guess, 25%. It's probably a little more than that mathematically because of the crits. And I think I've talked too much about Houndmaster, so let's go to Vestal Chan. Man, the need for these jump cuts is coming at the worst time possible. So yeah, Vestal Chan, no surprise, the skill loadout is what we're used to. This is a low-level trinket setup. You can use survival guide and stuff, but giving Vestal some extra stun chance is nice because we need to hit those stuns with the bleed team. And if you need a low-level healing trinket, there is the Chirurgeon's Charm. You could also use something like survival guide or any other kind of supporty defensive trinkets that are out there. Or I guess even Junia's Head, because it's pretty easy to find Junia's Head early on. The way to play this team is to get as much bleed rolling as possible and then sit back and spam recovery for the last couple turns. So your first 1 or 2 turns, unsurprisingly, are probably Battle Ballad just to get your crit and speed up. And then after that, the Jester hits Harvest once or twice, or Slice Off if you're running that. And the Flagellant hits Rain of Sorrows probably 1 time, maybe 2. And then switches to spamming Punish to help kill the first person because you have an almost glaring weakness. Not weakness, but the rank 1 enemy is probably the least threatening, but it's also the one you have the hardest time hitting, because Harvest doesn't hit it, and Hound's Harry hits it, but, you know, for like 3 bleed, that's kind of eh. So Flagellant just Rain of Sorrows probably 2 times, then punish the rest of the fight. The Houndmaster can hit Blackjack and Hound's Harry and just kind of rotate those if you want to bleed out everything. Or it's Blackjack and Hound's Rush and just try and wear everything down that way. And, you know, burst down certain targets with Hound's Rush. If you're in like the Warrens, for instance, where this team is probably going to enjoy itself because of the increased beast damage that Houndmaster has. You're going to be Hounds rushing on turn 1 to snipe the stress casters like the Spitting Pig, or gosh, what else is there? There's like that Drum Pig, and then there's the Skyver. Like all of those, the Houndmaster wants to hit directly on turn 1 if possible, especially the Skyvers. So if you're in Champion Warrens and you see a Skyver Pig, that is a dog biscuit and that is a Hounds Rush. Like there is no negotiating that. And for Swinotar, not too scary. And then in the Wield, you're probably gonna do the same thing against the Hateful Viragos, where you hit the dog biscuit and then you attack that thing directly. So once the big threat in terms of the backline is gone or about to die from bleed damage on the enemy team, then you switch to hitting Hounds Harry and then spamming Blackjack and stuff like that. Especially at the end of the fight, just rotating Blackjack on 2 targets and spam healing, very effective. Vestal, of course, is doing her best. She is hitting stun on turn 1, and then healing is needed. This team has a little more spread out damage, especially for the backline, that I don't think Vestal is really required to use Judgment anymore, so you can just like rotate stuns and heals and still be fine. As I was saying before, this team is good anywhere except the Ruins, so if they can bleed, they can die. You can take it to anywhere else. One final note about where this team goes is it does very well in Crimson Court because Crimson Court is very susceptible to bleed, and any boss that has multiple turns or multiple actions per turn, there are quite a few of them, this team can really put some damage down on because you can hit those Rain of Sorrows, that Hounds Rush, and like that Slice Off, and you can have like 25 bleed going for like their 3 turns or something like that. It's very easy to get a lot of bleed damage out of this team, and it can shred certain bosses. I'm going to be honest, I did not want to cover this last team, but then I thought I really need a finale team, and the one I was thinking about doing just isn't as cool as this, and I envisioned myself getting several comments of people asking, Shuffle, where's Divina Commedia? Please, we need the Divine Comedy in our lives. Like, alright, fine. So I'm just going to cover this team because I think it's the best example of finale that you could probably get. You can run other stuff that's a little more consistent, like Vestal combo with 2 dancers to give yourself double solo on Jester, but this team works surprisingly well, all things considered. So let's look at these Jesters. First, I think you should make all 3 of them different colors, just so you can tell them apart. And the Jesters are actually pretty reliant on speed, which is why I think this team does better in late game than early game, because that way you can get the Jester District, which is a little extra speed on top, +2. And you want your 3rd rank Jester to have the highest amount of speed. The reason this Jester needs the most speed is because he wants to solo first, and then you want to go in a descending order. So after rank 3 Jester gets to solo, rank 2 Jester has to solo after that, and then rank 1 has to solo last, because this way it gets solo up on all 3 of them, and they're all dodge tanking at that point. It's okay if you get solo up on like 2 of them, or even 1. It's not the end of the world, but this team does function a lot better if you can run it in the proper speed order, which is pretty tough to do. So you just gotta get them 1 or 2 points apart and then just hope that, you know, the dice rolls favor you. All of these Jesters will have the same loadout, so you have Dirk Stab to move around with, and this is surprisingly good when you have 3 Jesters. I know I talked earlier that it's not my favorite move, especially for sniping targets under guard, but when you have 3 Jesters that are doing this to targets that are guarded, it's actually really funny and fun to do. So having this is pretty consistent in terms of damage output, and it also baits the enemy into guarding low health targets and wasting their turns, which is really nice. You have Battle Ballad to give yourself a stronger finale buff than Dirk Stab. This is if you find yourself with nothing to do on your rank 3 Jester, or if you have a Jester that finales early and he's just in rank 4, then you can hit this a couple times. Otherwise, it's good. It's here for, again, consistency and having the highest amount of damage potential besides solo. Also, you don't need Inspiring Tune because none of these people should be getting hit that often. And if they are getting hit with anything or stress, they are getting so many crits between each other that you're already working off stress. So you don't really need Inspiring Tune. Solo, this is to give yourself the biggest finale buff possible, obviously, and get you up to the front. Chaining solos is kind of important, so I guess we'll talk about that after I go through everything. And then obviously finale. This is here just to kill stuff after X amount of turns. If it's a short fight, you want to fire this earlier. If it's a long fight, you want to do this at the end, but You should be using finales when you know that the fight is over. So you measure out the team's HP, the enemy HP, and you'll get used to this the more you play it. And then you go, okay, they're all at like, 20 each, that's 3 finales, or one's at 60, that's 2 finales, and then you just go down that way. So you want to be spending 2 or 3 finales, and then the fight's done. That's the ideal way to be playing this. So if you're finding yourself at that mark very consistently, then you're probably doing this correctly. So the front Jester has the lowest speed here, and you're just trying to put crit and potentially dodge trinkets on each of them just to give them a little more damage and defense. Crit is a much higher damage stat for Finale than raw damage, so we're trying to stack crit as much as possible where we can. And this can be any combination of stuff. This doesn't have to be Wilbur's Flag. This could be a camouflage cloak or a feather crystal if you really want to. There are just so many dodge trinkets out there, but you just pick the good ones that you have available to you. And then the same thing for the next one. Rank 2 Jester should have some kind of speed item, and then some kind of dodge item. And then rank 3 Jester should have the highest amount of speed, and then also have dodge and potentially some damage. It's okay if the third Jester has the least damage, just because he's going to be soloing first, and that's like the important job. So maybe if you have a Jester that doesn't have any melee damage quirks, this is the one you give all the speed to. I actually have 2 of them that don't have anything like that. I only have 1 melee damage Jester. And then the Antiquarian has a very specialized set of skills. I don't know if that's like the Taken line. I don't think it is. I think it's close, but not exactly. And so I gave her the Crimson Court set, but you can give her anything that gives her dodge and speed. And I'm going to stress again that this team really does need speed. It needs speed more than anything because it has to set up before the enemy starts hitting you. If this team cannot have like 3 people go first, it's going to struggle in most fights. So having it able to go first lets everyone get solo. It lets Invigorating Vapors go out. It lets everything happen. It lets you go first. It's just a very well-oiled machine. So speed, speed, speed. I sound like a commercial at this point. But the Antiquarian, I gave her the Crimson Court set because it gives her dodge and speed, and also a couple other goodies. The set, or not the set bonus, but the 2 of 3 isn't that great. My chair just popped, so it's probably distracting me already. But I do like the Master's Essence to give her some healing skill and blight skill. So this is just to make it, if the Jesters do take some damage, she can actually help them recover just a little bit. And then if she has to chip in with Festering Vapors to help out with damage, she has something to help her do that. But otherwise, this could be, again, speed and dodge, or just healing, just all kinds of stuff can go here. The moveset, I do like Festering Vapors over Nervous Stab for damage, just because you can hit everything, and it's just better long-term damage than Nervous Stab. We have Get Down in case a surprise happens, or if some random thing just pulls Antiquarian to the front, or you have 3 finales go off and Antiquarian's in rank 1, you have something to get back. You can even use this in rank 3 and 4, which is pretty crazy, so if she ever needs some extra speed and dodge, you can just hit this a couple times. But mostly your turn 1s are going to be Invigorating Vapors, just to help everyone get out of the way of stuff a little more consistently. And then we also have Fortifying Vapors just to heal in case someone hits Death's Door, which is very possible with this team. As I said, this team is very fun to play. I actually really enjoy it. It works pretty much everywhere just because it's hinging on just raw damage instead of like blights and stuff, even though you do have Antiquarian for blight. But this can go to any region. It has a very solitaire style of game plan where they just want to go first, they want to dodge, they want to Dirk Stab all the squishy targets, and then they want to finale all the big targets, and then the fight's over. It plays the same every single time. So once you play it a couple times, you'll probably get used to the pace of it and when you should be doing what. And as long as you have solo up on each Jester for like the entire fight, then you're doing it, correctly. There is a little nuance to this team, so you have to be looking at the fight that you're in, and you have to understand the enemies a little bit to play this at probably the maximum efficiency, I would think. So for short fights, you want to get both solos on each Jester down as early as possible. The reason for this is once you have each each solo up twice, then you're just gonna erase anything that you hit with finale. So the average room and hallway battle is like 4 turns, so you should be shooting for that. So getting both finales up at the quickest way possible, or the quickest pace, is ideal. And then for longer fights, you want to stretch out your solos. The reason for this is the solo dodge buff is so important to the Jesters that if you're fighting a big beefy enemy like the Swinotar, I guess I should say big porky enemy, or if you're fighting just anything that has a lot of prot, this team does kind of hate prot, but it's able to punch through it hard enough if you can get your 8 turns of finale charging up. So you want to make sure that for those longer fights, you use the first solo on turn 1 because everyone needs to dodge. And then you want to use the second solo either like on turn 6 or 5 so everyone has dodge till the end of the fight. Or you want to hit solo on like turn 7 so you get up to the front easily. It's one of those two, but you want to make sure that you have the second solo there to give you enough uptime on dodge and then also the positioning. And hopefully you have everyone in the right order, because once finale starts going off, it's pretty much the end. The one time it does suck is if you are on like turn 8 and you have everyone charged up and the slowest Jester in rank 3 just happens to high roll speed, then he has to like waste his solo buff. So just be aware of that. Like I said, if you're dropping finales on turn 7 or turn 8, then everything should be dead. Antiquarian's job is very easy here. She is literally the fog machine, as was described, I think, in 4-2-Flow's video, where this is just a band of Jesters and a fog machine and Antiquarian using Invigorating Vapors. I think that is like the most perfect description. Antiquarian is using Invigorating Vapors for like the entire fight, unless she has to chip in with Festering Vapors on damage, or heal someone, or use Get Down. But you're pretty much just spamming dodge and trying to have 100% uptime on 3 stacks to keep your Jesters at like 110 dodge. Probably higher. If you can get both solos, you can get up to like 140. That's pretty sick. I do like that idea too, or I should say the visual for this team, where it's literally 3 psycho clowns knee sliding with their loots out, playing just music, scaring everything. They randomly just show up and stab you with a knife, and you can't hit them back for some reason. And they just run around. There's a bunch of fog everywhere. It's such a funny way to think about this team, but it's, like I said, it's one of the funnest things to play in this game. Alright, y'all, that's going to do it for this one. Thanks so much for watching. Like I said before, join Discord if you haven't. Stay tuned for other Darkest Dungeon guides. I'm really trying to push these out before Darkest Dungeon 2 comes out. So I'm trying to put a lot of my work into it, and I may end up having to pull back on some of the playthrough stuff, which would be kind of sad, but you know what? I think this is more important right now, so we'll see what happens. Like I was saying, thanks for watching. Join Discord. Let me know what you think down below. Let me know what works for you, what doesn't, because healthy discussion is always fun to have, and I think everyone benefits from it, so I'll see you later.